Hello, everybody. Ella J here on behalf of WrestleZone, and today I am joined by the Gladiator of the Geeks, Riley Shepard. How are you today?
Hi, I'm great. How are you doing, Ella?
I was telling you a little bit off air, a little bit coming off of a little bit of sickness, but I am so happy to finally be chatting with you. It's
Yes.
been about 2 years since the last time we spoke, and obviously
hmm
a lot has changed for both of us. Obviously, with you as well. You've been very open and about it on social media. For those who don't know, you came off of another knee injury and
hmm
surgery. You had plans to return to the ring. Those unfortunately got put on hold as you were then diagnosed with relapsing-remitting multiple sclerosis. So you talk a lot of it obviously on your whole website, but can you walk us through kind of the journey that led us here, to this diagnosis?
Yeah. So I've taken a bit of a hiatus, which anyone who's been away from the ring for a while knows like how much that can take its toll and how much we love it.
Yeah.
Like it's wrestling is like nothing else in this world. The highs, the lows, the happiness, like, and it's so empowering. So that bit of it I miss so much. But I got really lucky in July of 2022 to be on Women's Wrestling Army. And I got to fight one of my bucket list people, Lufisto, who is someone who I worked with at Rogue Women Warriors when I was like just
Yes.
coming up. And I had said to her, I'm like, I want you. Um, so that was literally a bucket list thing for me. It was main event on the show. I was riding high, obviously very nervous because I wanted to show up and show out. And unfortunately, there was just a fluke. I went to go hit an uppercut on her, and my knee planted when I pivoted, and the other part went the other way. And so my meniscus completely tore. And not only did it tear, it flipped and went into the knee joint. So it was just, it was a bit of a
Yeah.
hot mess. Which was, we were in Chicago and I'm from the East Coast. So traveling back, I had to be wheeled out of the ring with on a chair dolly. So that was quite an interesting thing. But everyone there was so supportive and so sweet, reached out to me to check in on me. Ali Rex and Jordan Blade were really there for me. And it was really great to kind of see that we're always there, and that locker room was amazing. So I would love to eventually hopefully get back to that. But as you had mentioned, that was something that put me on a course to surgery and recovery and rehab, which I'm no stranger to. I tore my ACL
Um,
back in 2018 and did that whole surgery. So I knew I was coming back. It was a matter of time. I wanted to come back. And then things kind of went a little sideways in June of last year around like Father's Day. All of a sudden I started feeling really dizzy. And it was dizzy that I couldn't get up off my couch. I was sick to my stomach. It was just debilitating. And on top of that, a week later, my ears started feeling like, you know, that feeling like when you're stuck on an airplane?
yeah,
it,
they're
it
like
was like,
full.
yeah, the
Yeah.
fullness of it, and sometimes the pain. So all of that was going on, and I went to so many doctors, primary care, ENT, two neurologists. And luckily, my primary care doctor was fabulous, fought for an MRI for me, because I don't know if she hadn't fought for that, what it would have been. Because one of the neurologists pretty much said, just wake up, do exercise in the morning, get enough sleep, things like that, you'll be fine. And I went, that doesn't feel like that's gonna fix the problem, sir. So luckily, the MRI, luckily, unluckily, however you want to look at it, luckily because it got caught early, unluckily because I do have 5 lesions, 5 big lesions. There's more, but 5 big lesions on my brain. And so that was definitely put my world into a tilt even more than the disease. So that was something that I finally got diagnosed with in July, and I am something I'll have for the rest of my life. I'm lucky where it, like I said, it was caught early. So I am getting infusions every 6 months that help to treat it. And over time, it gets, hopefully the point of those infusions is to get a little bit better, a little bit better. It stabilizes lesions on my brain, hopefully keeps other lesions from coming in and things like that. So that is the hope, that it stabilizes. I'm going to knock on all of the wood at this point. I've gotten really lucky that the past, I don't know, 4 or 5 months, I haven't really had a dizzy spell that has been debilitating. There's been days of lightheadedness, but nothing like I can go to work. So that all happened. And I started going back and training with Cheeseburger and Preacher at Worldwide Dojo, and they're amazing. And were very, very patient with me. And to the point where I had to say to Preacher one time, I'm like, I need to, my knee, because he was looking out for my knee. And at that point, we had been about, I don't know, a year and a half, 2 years into this recovery from the meniscus. I'm like, my knee's fine. I'm like, maybe just don't hit me in the head too much, but my
Yeah.
knee's fine. It's more the brain at this point, but we're still doing this thing. So it was really cool to get back into the ring and start to test my limits of what's safe for me, what's safe for others, because it's a dance. It's two people, and I want to always be safe, not just for myself, but for the people I'm in the ring with. So that has been a learning curve. But it felt really good to get back in for sure.
Yeah, you mentioned especially this last year has been a huge learning curve for you, not only physically, but mentally as well. In-ring wise is obviously one, but what are some of the other physical challenge you've faced both in lifting and also in regular activities like bike riding? I know you mentioned in your website posts as well.
Yeah, so obviously lifting, if you're dizzy or you're lightheaded, that's going to be a no bueno, because I started back with a personal trainer who's amazing. Her name is Sylvia, and she's this little petite, like 5'2"
Yeah.
woman who just ran a triathlon, and she kicks my butt all the time. But so I started being able to squat like 205 for 12 reps and things like that. And that's like my baseline of normal. So if you're lightheaded, obviously that's not gonna go well. So that sometimes can put a wrench in things. And there was about a week or two when we first started working out, where I had to say, hey, I need to back off a little bit. A lot of it was just figuring out what my baseline was and where I could push and where I could safely push. And I think just overall, whether it comes to illness or injury or anything like that, a lot of times we don't have control. The most we can do is the best that we can with what we're given. And so for me with MS, the days where I'm super dizzy, I'm going to know I need to treat myself and have a little bit of grace for myself. And the days where I'm not, I know I can push. I know I can work out. I know I can run around and be on my bike and train in the ring. So I think just relearning that to control what you can and give yourself grace when you need that was something that I really had to learn even more so. So yeah, especially for someone who, like, I fight all the time. So there's just picking my fights, picking my battles a little bit smarter, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean physically too, especially, wrestling itself is inherently risky, but
Yeah.
added like, MS and all of that, it has a mental toll as well. You talked about physically, controlling what you can, but also
Mhm.
mentally as well. How do you, obviously that's part of it, realizing that you can only control the controllable is what I've been
Mhm.
told several times. But
Yes.
how else do you center yourself back mentally and eliminate any of those mental blocks around the along the way?
So working out has always been my favorite thing. And I think realizing the days that I can do things, it's not that I can do things, or it's not that I can lift, it's not that I can be on a bike, it's that I get to.
Yeah.
Today, I get to do this. And being able to celebrate those days and feel like, oh my God, this feels so good. Like my whole personality when I work out, and I'm sure, other people feel the same way. You get those endorphins and things like
Yeah.
that. But just kind of looking at the world a little bit different of, I get to do this. When I first got diagnosed with MS, one of the things that triggers my MS is heat. And my family was going to LBI, which is a beach here in New Jersey. And I didn't know how I was going to be, one, if I was going to be able to swim in the ocean, two, if I was going to be able to stay out in the sun on the beach. And I love the beach. I'm a Jersey girl, born and bred, grew up on
Yeah.
the beach. So when I was able to go and even just swim the ocean for like a half hour, and I got back to the blanket and I was lightheaded. I'm not gonna lie, I was lightheaded, but like I got to swim in the ocean. I got to be out in the sun. I got to ride my bike with my family around that town in the sun. And obviously, I do have to check in with my body a little bit more, but every time I get to do something is something that it just makes me all the more grateful for it.
I love that you've been able to I mean, in knowing you, I've know we first chatted what 4 years ago now at this point. You've always been one that I have noticed, even on screen and off screen has been a very positive person, but I have to imagine that that has been a little bit challenging throughout this
Sometimes.
this last year. In this present day, in regards to your MS specifically, are you in remission? Is it relapse? Because it can fluctuate, that's that type of
Mhm.
diagnosis. What is its current state like right now?
So right now I have just passed technically the 1 year anniversary, and they always say the 1 year is the hardest because it's you trying to stabilize stuff. So my last MRI, one of my lesions did shrink and one of my lesions did stabilize. So at this point, I am in remission. It is being actively very well treated with these infusions. And that's like, again, knock on all of the wood that continues. But that's really where I am right now. And the hope is that can continue. There will be possibilities of it relapsing, and we'll take that as it comes.
Yeah.
But until then, I'm not gonna wait for it. I'm not gonna look for it. I'm gonna enjoy what I can in the time that I can.
Obviously, in your post, you talked about you had a tentative date in mind
Mhm.
for a return to professional wrestling as you battle
Yeah.
MS, which again is so inspiring of you. We're all rooting for you, but obviously, you've recently got some unfortunate news that is out there now. You've recently retorn your ACL,
Mhm.
underwent surgery. So, what does this mean for your future as a whole now?
So the answer is I don't know. And I hate that answer. It's one of my answers that I think it's very easy and not very easy, actually. I say that, and it's not very easy to in the moment. I tore my ACL in June. I got the surgery July 25th. ACL is anyone who went through reconstruction. It's a 9 to 12 month recovery, return to sport. Um, I had always told myself that if I ever retore my ACL, I wasn't going to come back, because that recovery is really rough. It's a mental and physical toll, but I've done mental and physical tolls so
Yeah.
much this past 2.5 years at this point that it's like, okay, I can make the decision now, or what I can do is use this as a reset. And the reset is I'm going to use the next 9, 10, 12 months, hopefully it's not 12, just to be the healthiest person I can be. To go back to weightlifting 5 days a week, having physical therapy 3 days a week, and just get back to healthy Riley Shepard. And that's all I'm going to know. That's all I do have an answer for right now. If that time comes where I feel like I'm healthy enough to be back training in the ring, that'll be the next chapter of, again, training in the ring for a good amount of time to be safe for other people. And then we'll go from there. But I don't know. I don't know if the door's completely closed. I'll let you all know in maybe a year.
That's,
But
that's the thing about, knee and neck injuries, I feel like are the worst, injuries to professional wrestlers, because the time period is so long, but also, this was what, your third knee injury?
it's technically my fourth surgery, but the third like
Okay.
actual injury. One of them was I
Okay.
had a piece of cartilage like flowing away willy-nilly in
Oh,
there,
okay.
and they're like, we need to fish that out. It was weird,
Yeah.
fun.
Now, was
So
it all on the same knee?
yeah.
All of
Yes.
this? Oh
We
my
like to be
God.
consistent, and we don't do things by halves.
At least you have one healthy knee. At
Don't jinx it.
least.
You better find someone now to knock on, I swear.
I mean, that's at least an upside, You can keep
Yeah.
a look at the positives,
I know, I
Um,
know. And that's my physical therapist know me by now. I've been there for like almost 6 years at this point, and they're like, you know the recovery. I do know the
yeah.
recovery. So that's a positive too of I know what this looks like, and it's just getting to that point and just in the meantime controlling what I can.
Yeah, I know had everything gone to plan, I know you were really keen on wrestling for Ring of Honor again and also wrestling in
Yes.
Japan. So, in a perfect world, if you had a chance to return to the wrestling world where health was not a concern,
Yeah.
what would you hope to accomplish or do?
Ring of Honor has always been the goal for me. And I think that's partly because I came up through Monster Factory and now the
Yeah,
Worldwide Dojo. They all have such big ties to Ring of
yeah.
Honor. So I've been around that. I got to debut for Ring of Honor within my first year. So for me, it was just kind of one of those full circles. I wanted that so badly. So that is something that will always be a goal for me. Whether it's attainable, we'll see. Whether the goal really just is to step back in the ring one more time or for one more year, that may be it. But in a perfect world, it would be Ring of Honor, it would be Japan, it would be TNA. Yeah, those are really the biggest goals that I have always wanted for sure.
I know you've been manifesting a battle with former ROH Women's Champion Mercedes Martinez upon your return. TNA has
Yes,
a wonderful division all across the
I
board. So
know.
does Japan. So who else would you have your eye on working with in the ring besides Mercedes?
So I'm gonna say this, and I still can't believe this hasn't happened. So my best friend in and out of the ring is Jordan Blade. I love her to death. She literally is my best friend in the world. Weirdly, we have never had a singles battle ever.
Crazy.
I know we've had a tag team battle, which like I'm so grateful to having that because then I got to wrestle with my tag team partner Kennedy, and it just became a thing.
Yeah.
And luckily, we got to be awkward together. So I love that we got that match, but I've never ever had a singles match with Jordan Blades. So she is definitely on there, and I know she's just waiting for that time. She's like right there, and I can't wait to see it and celebrate that with her when that happens. So her for sure.
Daddy of the district,
Yes,
submission sniper. Glad now
yes.
have you guys thought, I mean, obviously against each other, but like if you were a team, like have you thought about a name?
So it would probably have to be a play on like Blade and Shield or something like
Oh
that.
yeah, yeah.
Like something along those lines. I think at one point we were hanging out and she crashes in my at my apartment when she comes up
Yeah.
here. And I think it was one of those like late night giggle sessions of like, oh my God, this would be such a good name. And it was like Blade and Shield or Sword and Blade or something like
Oh
that.
yeah.
But yeah, that would probably be it. It would make
I like
sense.
it. Some play on that. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. I like it. And then you'll have to have, you have obviously your sword. We need to
I
get
know.
Jordan. I don't think Jordan has like an official sword herself
She
yet. So you need to
doesn't.
get her one, Riley.
I do. That's the funny thing is she's geeky in her own way, but she's not geeky when it comes to like
Yeah.
pointy objects. I'm like, your last
Yeah.
name, like it's Blade. How could you not?
Yeah.
You need
So
like
she
two
needs some
daggers
some
on
weapon. Yeah, even if it's just a
some
dagger,
entrance
you know?
gear and have like two daggers or something like
Yeah.
that. Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
Obviously the beauty though is, God forbid something wrestling isn't in the cards for you. There's so many other, non-wrestling roles in the industry, like managing, commentating, ring announcing, hosting and all that. Are you interested, again, God forbid, in taking up potentially non-wrestling roles?
So I have done commentary quite a few
Yes.
times before, so that's something I'm familiar with. I have had Recombination Wrestling. Already had talks with them in Titans Championship Wrestling about them possibly bringing me in for commentary, and I have told them like let me take the time to try and be healthy,
Of course.
because I think that's just one of those things. It's really cool to do, and I love being in a part of it, but my heart will always be in the ring. And right now it's still kind of stuck on that. Um, if it comes to it, it's something I'm definitely open to exploring further for sure.
And you talk about having things close to your heart outside of wrestling. You work
Mhm.
as a case manager for youth at risk of homelessness,
Yeah.
and I know that's something you've held close to your heart. So, as much as you can, tell us about some of your work as a case manager and what motivated you to pursue this field.
Yeah, so the short version is I used to be a 911 dispatcher and a police officer,
Yes.
and then fell out of love with that. Got into I worked for a nonprofit for domestic violence and sexual assault, where I was also a case manager doing transitional housing, helping them to find a lease, pay the lease. So now I've transitioned into, it's called Anchor House, and they're amazing. They help at-risk youth who have been aging out of like foster care or who may have some criminal backgrounds, things like that, to kind of give them better opportunities because they're more at risk of being unhoused. So I work with them, one, again, finding leases. So very similar to my previous job, finding leases, helping them with the rent through Section 8 and things like that. And then on top of that, we help with other resources. We do events for them. They just had a ride for Runaways, which like raised $500,000 for, I know it was like a week-long ride from Virginia to New Jersey, and they raised all this money. So there's a lot of community events to help with these kids. And it's just really cool to kind of to see these kids thrive and get the support that they may not have had before. And so for me, it just makes me feel really good when you like see that light bulb moment for them and things like that of like, oh, okay, I get that. And it's something they can start putting into practice or a habit so that they can be self-sufficient and independent once our program ends. So that's, yeah, I've loved the work I've gotten to do for these nonprofits. It's something that I will always have to fill my heart.
Keeping yourself occupied too, outside of,
Yeah.
injuries and stuff like that.
Oh
Final
yeah.
question, how else have you been filling your time? Obviously you're big into, I mean, I don't know how much you've done lately, but gaming is obviously
Mm.
huge for you.
Yeah.
How else have you been filling your time?
So I am still gaming. I have actually been playing a cozy game called Moonstone Island, which if you've ever played like Stardew or Pokemon, it's a
Yeah.
weird like mesh of that.
Okay.
But the battles are like deck. So I don't know if Magic the Gathering or like the Pokemon card games. So
Yeah.
you battle with cards essentially. So I've been playing that video game, especially since the surgery because I'm recovering from that. And then I read every night. Every single night, fantasy, whether it be, fae or vampires or anything like that. I'm definitely one of those girlies. I grew up on like Hunger Games and all of that. So
What are you reading currently?
so it is a book about fae, and it's and then there's other things like Night Child with vampires and things like that. It's called
Yeah.
Lady of Darkness. But it's a series. I love series because I love world building. If you haven't,
Yeah.
a lot
Yes.
of my stuff is very world building.
Yeah. Keeps you occupied too. It gives you an escape. Wrestling normally gives you an escape. Books are also an escape too as
Yeah,
well.
yeah.
Obviously we wish you the best of luck, in your
Thank you.
recovery, both from MS and your knee as well. Like I said, you have such a great story and it's very inspirational to a lot of people. And I hope you know that a lot of us are rooting for
Oh,
you, regardless of what happens, with your future professionally. Obviously health is first and foremost
yeah,
most important. So
yeah.
we wish you the best of luck in that. Before we let you go, please let the listeners know where they can find you online and support you.
Sure. I am at the Riley Shepard on either Instagram or X. I keep almost calling it Twitter. Facebook, you can also just search Riley Shepard. I do have a website. It's rileyshepard.com, where I actually posted an article about MS and all of the stuff, a lot of the stuff that we talked about. So yeah, that's where you can find me. And yeah.
Well, Riley, thank you so much for catching up with me here today. Obviously, like I said, we wish you the best of luck. In the meantime, though, don't let anybody dull your sparkle, girl. Keep that spirit alive. Like I said, I've always known you to be a smiling person. Don't let anybody dull that for you, okay?
I
That's
won't, I promise. I pinky
good.
promise.
Riley, thank you so much again.
Thank you.